Ready to go? Yep, we're good. All right.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Apparel Business Review. Just a show of hands before we get started. How many people are here for the first time? Okay. Put your hand down. All right, so for those of you who don't know what we do, ABR for short, our acronym that we use is Collaboration, Support, and Innovation. And we are basically a community of creative professionals within the fashion industry and beyond that believe in spreading the ideology that collaboration, support, and innovation is the new way to do business in today's world. And we're really trying to instill that upon the people we get involved with, the people who come to our meetings. How do we accomplish that? Well, we have a bi-monthly meeting, which happens the first and third Tuesday of every month. And in that meeting, we have a guest speaker from within the industry that focuses on a specific area of their expertise and shares a little bit about what their experiences are in the industry. And our ultimate goal here is to help each other get to that next level, whatever that next level may be. Let's say you want to climb the corporate ladder in an existing company that you're at, if you have the entrepreneurial spirit and you want to create your own company, or if you just want to further yourself as a professional or just meet some really cool people and become a better person through the process. Tonight we have a very special guest. He is the co-founder and creative director of Creative Recreation. He's going to be talking about the story of Creative Recreation. So I'm going to get out of here and let Rich Cofinco take it away.
Well, thank you, ABR, for inviting me. Thank you guys for coming to listen to what I got to say. Hopefully it's something exciting for you guys and something you can take away. One of the things that I was excited about to share with you guys about my creative recreation experience is basically kind of doing it in a way where when I was growing up in the industry, being a little anti-corporate. I mean, I think that when I say anti-corporate, I'm not saying more of a sense of, F corporations and this and that. I felt more of like there's room for individuals to create businesses out there. And I think we were one of the, Creative Recreation was actually one of the brands that did it. But it was also through the belief of just doing what we need to do out there in the market and creating a niche out there and really standing behind it and going through the 5 years of hard blood, sweat, and tears to really come to fruition. So that being said, that's kind of a little summary of Creative Rec, but then to really understand it, I kind of want to go back to my little childhood years of how I started, because it kind of tells the story about how I was able to do Creative Recreation. So that being said, when I was a little boy, I couldn't draw worth crap. I had my older brothers, they used to teach me a lot, but I just couldn't get it for some reason. I didn't have it in my body. Then towards like elementary, I started drawing, but using tools like circle templates and rulers so I can get lines straight and do all that kind of stuff. So it was a little draw. And then after that, the whole hip hop thing came. And then it was weird because for me, it was an element that I saw that like I can be expressive, in whatever I decided to do. And then with that being said, there was like different elements in there. Like you can be a DJ, you can be a b-boy, a dancer, you can be a graffiti artist, or a rapper. So I tried them all, and then where I saw a passion coming out was in the art, in graffiti art. And it was weird because before, like I said, I couldn't draw, but then all of a sudden, for some reason, like it was like an element that was so different from me that I was like, dang, now I can be able to create something and then have everyone see it out in the world. It becomes kind of like my billboard, and if people like it, they'll appreciate it. If people don't like it, they'll go over it. But that also mentally got me prepared to even start thinking of like, how do you create something that is like something unusual and different. So again, now going back to my experience with the graffiti art, the challenge was like, if you were out in the streets and you got up on the walls, if you were going over someone, you had to be better than them, you know, at the end of the day. If you weren't, they were going to go over you. So for me, I felt like an asset for me out in the industry to start thinking that way. So what I had to think is like, man, my challenge is how can I always one up, or how can I always like top whatever is out there. So it was cool that added that implementation into my thought process. Then later on, got into the college years, and then I got into art, obviously, and then did a lot of those art programs. The one thing that stuck into my mind at that time was I had this graphic arts teacher, and then every time he would like give assignments or stuff like that, every time he would challenge us on that, he would say it literally of what he wanted. But every time I heard it, I always took it to the next. I always thought out of the box, and I always thought, all right, he said this, but that's so typical. Why can't I do it this way and then see what happens? So ironically, the bad part about it is he always used me as the guy of like, this is what I told you not to do. And I'm like, oh, but I thought I'm doing something cool and different, It's like, you said to do this, but this stands out more than everyone else that did exactly what you said. And then he goes, but that's the problem. You're not listening to my direction. And I'm like, okay, I guess, whatever, So throughout that whole semester I had him, I was just like hating this guy. And then finally at the end of that semester, like the bell rang and it was the last day, finally got to leave, and I was like, good, I'm done with this guy. And then as soon as I started leaving, he goes, Rich, stop, I'm gonna talk to you. And I'm like, oh, what is this guy gonna say? So I sat back, I waited, everyone kind of left, and then he sat down with me and he's all, Rich, you know why I used you as always an example? I'm like, because I wasn't paying attention? I don't know. I mean, what was it? He's like, yeah, basically because my job as a teacher is I'm supposed to teach, and then as students, they're supposed to listen, and then at the same time, learn from what I'm teaching. And what you're doing is you're going against what I'm teaching. So it makes me look bad in front of my students. And I'm like, oh, all right, cool, whatever. So are you done? And he goes, nah, but what I really want to tell you is like, keep doing what you're doing. And I was shocked. I was like, really? So yeah, because what I saw from you, I've never seen from nobody else. And I go, well, how come you didn't want to, why didn't you say that in front of them? And he's like, because I can't, because I'm teaching. So what I have to do is teach my criteria, and everyone has to follow. But you have something. I don't know what it is, but every time I tell you to do something, you take it to the next. And I was like, okay. So that kind of like stuck to me at that. As soon as I heard that, at first I hated him, but then he became my #1 mentor after that. Because after hearing that, it was weird from him. Again, it's kind of like being that corporate structure of like telling you what you can do and what you can't do, to like pulling you off to the side and kind of saying, keep on trucking because what you got is special. So that transcended into me and into like how I like got into designing and got into like even thinking of the designing process. So then now I started going in, like graduated from college, and now I start looking for work. First thing I got was a corporate job, obviously. It was at Hughes Aircraft. So my job there was to design the kiosks, basically, the monitors that you see behind your seats. At that time, again, creatively, it was cool because I was excited about, before it was like 8-bit pixelated type screens. And then I started like getting more into the Photoshop, making the buttons look more 3D and realistic and stuff like that. But then I would do those like in like minutes. And then in that Hughes Aircraft corporate environment, it takes like 3 months for them to look at it. So like I do it in 5 minutes, and I got 3 months of just sitting in my cubicle doing nothing, you know? So as far as that creatively, it was just kind of boring for me at the time. One of the things I started doing, oh wait, let me backtrack on that though. For me to get that job, everyone has, you know, like their resumes and whatnot. With me, I brought my pictures of graph, some of my like graffiti drawings and whatnot. And it was interesting because the art director who was hiring at that time, like at first I thought it was, again, one of those things like, oh, they might think it's just crappy street art or whatever. But she again saw it as more of like, wow, man, you're creative. Like you do this stuff. It's like, man, I can see how like this can transcend into like the corporate environment. And I was like, wow, you see that out of what I've done? And he's like, yeah, I mean, like for you to do these kind of things is so different from the norm. Like what she was used to, like when people, you know, come for those graphic design positions, as they're showing them off, you'll see a lot of graphic designs, some products, some like logos, layouts, or whatever. And I just literally showed them pictures, and it became an advantage for me. So a lot of things I was doing was out of the box, and it was working for me for some reason. And it seemed like from there I just started getting more confidence of like what I was about and what I could do out in the market. So then after that is I got tired of Hughes. I was contracted at the time, and then they finally hired me for full time. And then a week later, I quit. And then ended up getting a job at Vision Streetwear. At that time, again, ironically, this whole graffiti type T-shirts were kind of like going into the market, which was actually the start of the streetwear kind of industry at the time. So Vision Streetwear hired me to kind of do urban or kind of street type graphics, you know, for their brand. But the guy was kind of like a workhorse, you know, he made me do tons of things. So I was designing graphics for like skate wheels, skate decks, apparel, t-shirts, hard goods, snowboards, all that kind of stuff. And then finally he asked me one day, he goes, I want you to design snow boots. I'm like, dude, I've never done that before. He's like, I don't care, just do it. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I did it, and then kind of just did this drawing. I had no skills. I didn't go to school for it, nothing. I just kind of drew through, you know, my graphic experience. And then months later, like the samples came, and then I physically saw the 3D sample, and I was like, oh, something like that came into fruition, and from there I was hooked. So he started pushing me just to try to design the snow boots, so I just kept doing that. And then another time he just, you know, came up to me again and goes, hey, I want you to design skate shoes. And I said the same thing. I don't know how to do that. And he's like, I don't care, just do it. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I did that as well. And then from there, I started getting hooked on the footwear program. Then, ironically, after that, a headhunter was looking for me and a partner of mine over at Vans to start the snow boot program for Vans. Prior to that, they were doing more just pre-bought, just all rubber, kind of like snow type boots. And then they hired us to start making custom boots. So the first thing I thought of, again, was like the heritage of the brand. So I made like skate highs, but a snow boot. And then it ended up to be like one of their biggest shoes, because it was just, you know, replicating one of their traditional skate shoes, but made it a snow boot. Then also they had some team riders, so they were requesting some weird stuff. This rider, Sean Palmer, he requested like a wingtip type boot. And again, that was never been done in the industry, so I was like, all right, and I've never been in the industry, so I'm like, all right, I'll do it. You know, and then we do it, and then it's something big and different and unusual in that category. So then when we started seeing that, I got more excited, and I started adding a lot more technology. So again, I was a sneakerhead at the time, seeing like all the Nikes out there. At the time, I think the 95 Air Maxes were huge, so I did this kind of gradient snow boot that was kind of similar to that. That had the multiple patterns of like the dark gray to light gray, with the the yellow or fluorescent yellow color pop and everything, but aesthetically different, obviously. But then just to again bring product always to the next level. Everyone like that I've always dealt with, like with those team riders, they would always be astonished of like what the outcome ended up to be. It's like they would picture something in their head that's so typical and traditional, and then when I'm done with it, they're like, oh, I didn't think of that, but I like it. It's like they end up liking it. So again, it's like it just gained me more confidence of just believing in, like, I guess the gift that God gave me. And I didn't even realize, from that I had it until, I guess, the way I was treating it, So then after Vans, what started happening to me over there was kind of the same thing. As I kept pushing creative, innovation, trying to take stuff to the next level, but the brand was kind of like more like traditional and heritage. So there was a lot of shoe styles that were already, they're typical hero pieces that were selling. So for me to try to do innovative stuff, people weren't ready for it at the time. So I got a little bored, and I was like, man, you know what? We need to try to start our own brand. So out of there, there was, I guess, the COO at the time. He kind of overheard us wanting to do a new brand, and he wanted to jump in and help us. So he came in to invest, and then we started, ironically, a lifestyle brand in the action sports industry. So that brand we came up with was called Force Footwear. And the idea and concept was to like have a one-stop brand for the action sports lifestyle. So we made a category that was trainers, which were basically like running type shoes that you can wear for when you're going to the gym. Then we made a leisure category where they look like crepe bottom, casual shoes for that skater or action sports person to go out at night. And then obviously the skate shoes with the performance that they needed and function for their what they do. Again, that became successful, and again we created a niche that was out there that was different, because prior to that, the skate industry was so traditional. A lot of the skate shoes were just like typical, plain, looking like Stan Smiths or any of those kind of things. Nothing that was really crazy. Industry like adding technology and then moving the industry forward. But the sad story of that is a year later, that CEO that was investing into our brand wanted to kind of take a little bit of control over it, and then try to move it in certain places that we didn't want to move, and it became kind of like that clash of creative and business. And then to top it off, we heard through the grapevine, through some ex-Vans employees, that he was getting kickbacks. He was using the kickbacks to invest into our brand. So that being said, that was a no-no for us to be involved in, because then we could go to jail for that. But we confronted him and we asked him, like, what's the deal about this? We hear you're taking money from Vans and you're using it to invest into our program. And he's like, and this is what he told us. He goes, all right, guys, this is what we gotta say. And I'm like, oh, hell no! I ain't saying shit. You're going down. So sure enough, it happened. The unfortunate thing is the brand started, like, it was a year into it, the brand started doing well. And then it was on the cusp of like being a really legitimate brand. But then that kind of happened, and then I was just adamant of like, nah, I'm not down for that. I'm done. I gotta leave, and I'm not gonna go to jail. That being said, that was the fruition of Creative Rec. So just to backtrack a little bit, so you guys can understand too, is I went through the process of like doing it for corporations and they didn't get it. I went through the process of doing it ourselves with an investor and then saw some greed out of it. Then now that's what happened with when I started doing Creative Rec. It's like, all right, we gotta start this from the ground up. That being said, it's like blood, sweat, and tears and investment. So we kind of had a buzz in the industry after doing Force and all, Force footwear of being the cool designers. So we were able to float for a little bit off doing some freelance for Gravis, Dickies, I don't even remember, just a whole bunch of people that can just help us float for the time. So that took care of our 2 years of grinding. But then it was tough, it was really tough. I mean, one of the years that we had, like, I had a family, mortgage, all that kind of stuff, and I literally was bringing home $1,000 a month, and that was only what we had, and that's only what we can afford. Sometimes that money wouldn't even come just for the fact that we didn't have any jobs, any freelance jobs to handle, and our product wasn't really supporting us yet at the time. But at the end of the day, as we stuck to it and we believed in what we were doing and we saw it come to fruition, like how people say that 5 year, if you make it within the 5 years, you made it. We saw that. If we stuck it, like first 3 years were hell. The 4th year, we started seeing some traction. 5th year, we made it. And it was great. It was exciting to see, and it was exciting. It was also more of a pat on the back because it was something that we believed in passionately, and we were always going against everybody, like from accounts that wanted to pick up, well, not wanted to pick up the brand. We had to almost force them to pick up the brand, but to understand even what the brand was trying to convey. I think one of the things that we did was, through all those experiences of working in the corporate environment, we were saying, man, we don't want to be like this. We don't want to be like suits where you have to wear a suit and you have to wear hard shoes or this and that. Like, that's not us. It's like I grew up just wearing tennies, and I just want to do that throughout my life, whatever environment I'm in. And then that's where it clicked on us of like, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we create a young entrepreneurial lifestyle brand that transcends to our generation, and what we want out in the market. So that being said, we ran with it, and sure enough, it's like, all right, we're showing them. They're like, okay, what is this? Is this like skate shoes? And we're like, nah, it's lifestyle. They're like, what do you mean lifestyle? It's like to wear for whatever lifestyle that you are. Like it's more of a chameleon where it kind of fits into your style. And they're just like, I don't get it. What do you mean? It has to stand for something. Like Nike stands for sports. Cole Haan stands for casual. You're saying your lifestyle. What does that mean? And we're like, that's just what it is. That's what we're saying. It's lifestyle. I don't know what to tell you. So the funny thing about that again is that come 2 years later, all of a sudden we start seeing other footwear brands start, coming out of nowhere, coming out of the woodworks. And then all of a sudden they're saying the same thing. They're saying all lifestyle. Then all of a sudden the corporate environment understands it because now there's more players in that field. Then now it becomes also to like where it was a niche for us now becomes like an everyday word or an everyday term. But at the end of the day, the most exciting part of it for us is we were the ones that successfully created that. Lifestyle at the end of the day is been around. It's nothing new. It's I guess say Lacoste has done it before. But lifestyles being more like tennis and those kind of active kind of things. But for us to even like take it out of context and say lifestyle being your life with style, what kind of changed the whole mindset of things. One of the challenges we had is when it started getting popular, we had to start dealing with like these bigger accounts like a Nordstrom's or a Journeys or those kind of things. And then for them, they always need a meaning or a reason or a mission statement or something of what the brand was or is. And for me, I felt it was more an advantage that we were ambiguous, that nobody knew, that nobody could understand it. And we were like kind of like under all these people's radar, and they couldn't understand why we did it. Like I had friends over at Nike that were saying that, like, dude, man, we had our global presentation, and all we kept seeing was just all your shoes. We just kept saying creative rec, creative rec, creative rec, and then all the presenters would say, like, who are these people? How are they taking our market share? How are they taking our shelf space? And then to me, it's like I felt that was more of an advantage that they didn't know, that they didn't understand, that they are asking that. Like, why should we explain why we're doing it? Why should we explain how come we are taking the marketplace? I think it's better that they don't, because then it's more advantage for us, you know, for us that want to start, you know, be those entrepreneurs, you know? So it was just, for me, like, that's what I liked. But then unfortunately what started happening was it started falling into that. You know, I think as most businesses do, what happens is, I mean, I hate to say it, but I guess that greed does come, you know? And then people start seeing the money, and then the philosophy for a business is always to double, you know? And my challenge to, like, through my experience with Creative Rec was, my partners would always say double, 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 and then I'd be like, how? How are we gonna do it? And then their answer would be like, we just double. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean we just double? Like, it's like, yeah, we make twice, we'll just make twice as much as we made. And I'm like, okay, so who are you gonna distribute to? Who, like, what's the game plan? Like, how is it gonna sell through, this and that? Like all of a sudden things can't just be numbers, they have to be strategies.
Right.
And they didn't want to hear it. They just saw hero pieces that the brand had, and then they just wanted to run it. They just wanted to, like, almost run it to the ground. And it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's like any brand out there, it's like when you get a hero piece or you get something, you obviously, you know, try to run it and make as much money. We can make them more lustful. Rather than giving them what they want, give them less of what they want so they'll want it more, you know? And whenever I say that, my partners be like, well, Rich, ain't you trying to make money? And I go, I am trying to make money, but at the end of the day, if we do what we believe in, we'll make money. And we'll be happier making our money because it's what we believe in. And they're like, well, you know what, Rich? Hate to tell you, like, we're the big boys now, and this is how we gotta play. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think we can challenge ourselves to be sustainable without these people. I mean, we've done it before, but then we decided to grow. But I think if we challenged ourselves to, like, limit our distribution, you know, be more down with more core channels that would support us for the rest of our lives, and then just be loyal with all those accounts, then I think we can have a great sustainable business that can, like, last throughout eternity. But the disadvantage again is what happens is the ideology of constantly making money. So I got to a point of, like, where it was a sad time of my life where even in my own company, I couldn't do anything anymore. I couldn't be creative. I couldn't take the brand to the next level. Nobody was supporting me because everyone was trying to make money. I was so frustrated that I left, I think around 2010, no, 2012, just on the frustration of just, it wasn't the brand that I created. But that being said, while I was gone, you kind of really saw the passion in me. You saw all of a sudden it's like, yeah, they did make it into a business, and that's all they were worrying was about, selling volume and finding more doors to sell more volume. And then for me, it's like I saw also what I already told them was going to happen. I saw that now, all right, now you've oversaturated, now you've overdistributed, and now you have nothing new to back that up. But then now what are you going to do? You're going to keep doing it? Of course, you're going to keep doing it just for the fact that it's still making money, but you're not understanding, again, what are you doing out in the market? And I think that's the challenge that a lot of us have, is where I feel is what has to happen is a lot more passion, a lot more belief, a lot more struggle on what you do will always pay off. I mean, for us to think of it more of that we're doing it for the money, you will never win. You'll never win. For you to do it because you feel there's something out there that you can change out in the market, you'll win. Because you will also do that research, you'll also do everything in your power to understand what's out there. And what I always tell everybody, but think out the box. If you already see something out there, why do it? They've already done it, or they've already beat you to it. But there is other things you can do that can be a minor tweak, or that can be more of an advantage that's different from what they've done. And it's possible, there's those things. But the difficult thing for us is finding that niche, finding our lane, finding something out there that we can give to our society, and I think that was one of the main things that I always wanted creative recreation to be, because again, going back to telling you my history and having you understand how I was ending up to be this way, it was always against these people. I was always saying, you're telling me, I don't care what you say, but for others, they collapse. A lot of people, when they're getting told, well, you can't do it that way or you won't make money, then you second guess yourself. Then you kind of try to man, am I doing the right thing? Or man, is this stuff really going to fit in that market or not? At the end of the day, those are the things you shouldn't worry about. What you should worry about more is just what you want to do and put out. What great thing you want to put out in the market, and then have the satisfaction, if it's successful, that you put that out in the market and people embraced it because you had that passion behind it, rather than the popularity, or rather than force-fed into you, or rather than mass marketed so then you believe the hype. A lot of the things that we would like to do is create these kind of things that we create our own, almost support ourselves, and then really carve a market that out there that these bigger companies will want to try to get into, but they really can't, because they don't understand it. I mean, they'll try their hardest, or they'll try to adapt, or they'll try to do any of that, but at the same time, we can be 2 steps ahead. We can also all right, you did that? All right, we're going to go here. A lot of people don't think that way as well. It's a lot of people have a certain thing, and then they're well, that's ours, and now everyone's copying it. It kind of sucks. And I'm well, then, again, the graph mentality, you got to move on and, take it to the next. And I think those are challenges that's difficult for us because we second guess ourselves. But I don't think that should be the issue. I think there's room for a lot of things out there And there's things that have been done, obviously, out there, but there's room out there to do what we want to do, you know? I mean, look at like a lot of the game-changing big brands out there that have done it, but just through passion. I mean, Apple, for example. Steve Jobs, I mean, he was adamant of like making product for the people. But when he was thinking about that, is like the necessities of what people need out there was his challenge. And he figured it out. He was like, oh man, people like music, why can't they just bring their whole music category on their hand? And he did it and changed the game. You know? But again, what I want to show off on that though is like you got the innovation side, the creative side, but then you got the saturation of the competitors that try to now all of a sudden like think it was their idea. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. You know? So it's like a lot of the things that we have to understand is a lot of the game-changing things that we do should be enough rather than worrying about like you're going to make that $1 billion off making that technology or whatever the case may be. Again, the second game changer he did was the smartphone. I mean, that in general just changed everybody's life. You know, I mean, as far as like now being in tune with everybody, now like we don't even have to see anybody anymore. We can just talk to them on the phone or communicate. But as far as information, as far as resources, as far as all that stuff is now like on the palm of your hands, which was so unheard of in the past days. But again, it's like the creative flow, the creative process that makes our world just go to the next level. And no one can deny that, you know? And then a lot of people try to like sugarcoat it, or a lot of people try to act like, you know, that what you do isn't a big deal, but it is. Because business at the end of the day is just mathematics. You know, to me it's just numbers. It's even stuff you learn at school. You know, like if you go to business school, you do any of that stuff, they'll teach you that. And all of it is formulas, calculations, all that stuff. So there's nothing creative about doing it. It's just straight black and white. But another thing that I would always tell my partners at Creative Rec is when they would always challenge me on like making money, I would be like, okay, so marketing guy, if I didn't create product, what would you be marketing? You know, production guy, if I didn't create product, what would you be producing? You know, sales guy, if I didn't design product, what would you be selling? So how do you not understand what's the most important part of this business? You know, and people stray away from it. It's tough, but I think the only way, from what I've seen, the only way that can work and come to fruition for us is it's more on an entrepreneurial level, and it's more of believing in what you have to do, and then more believing in carving again a niche out in the market. And trust me, there's so much out there that we can do. There's tons, not even just in the footwear industry, in any industry. And all it does is just make society better, like Steve Jobs did for us. You know, like what Creative Rec has done to the footwear game. It's like, you know, even looking at the past of shoes in general, like colors back in those days were collegiate or pro. It was like red, white, black, yellow, whatever. Creative Rec came along again. What did I do? I didn't use sports for a background. I didn't use what the industry standard was in the industry. Again, I took myself out of context and I went to graffiti mode. So what I did is I pictured like the shoe as your canvas, and then how would I color that? So that being said, is how you saw the fruition of like multi-crazy colors on a shoe that you've never seen before. Like stuff that you would think that would never match, but all of a sudden this brand was doing it. And then as a lifestyle, people were trying to match their shoes with their shirts just to, you know, like create. Wouldn't ever do that in that industry. But now, fast forward 10 years later, you walk in the Foot Locker and it's like a throw up of Skittles colors. Like, it's all you see, you know? But again, it becomes that challenge of, you know, going back to Steve Jobs as a creator and changing the game. But at the end of the day, there becomes that saturation of it. But the bigger picture is like you created something that changed, you know, that changed the industry, that changes our society, that changes everything. If that's the main thing that you think of and then you make that happen, everything else that everyone talks about, money, all that stuff, all that will come. But then when the money comes, the challenge is how, where do you want to go from there? You know, it's like, you can always go, you always got to keep going up is, you know, the American way. But then through my experience, I'd rather be sustainable. I'd rather be here for all types of generations. But then I want to be that chameleon that can like change every decade or so. You know, like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this as well. It's like, for any industry, trends have this kind of like 10-year span of like things coming and going. Like it's a bell curve of like, this is the start of whatever trend it is, it peaks, then it goes down, then it comes up to the next one, peaks and goes down. So that being said, if you can be this one that's in the middle of those peaks and valleys, you're the one that's being more relevant throughout the times of everyone else. Everyone else always tries to figure out and tries to, you know, see what that new trend is just to chase that money, when you can create that trend and then they look at you and like, how did they do that under our noses? I didn't even see that coming, you know? And for you, at the end of the day, especially for me, it became that kind of like, you know, it was like my big F you to them, you know? I did it under their noses and they didn't even know how you did it, so. But, so yeah, so then, let's see, where was that? So then I left, and then again you saw kind of like what was happening. They started going to there. Then I think around 2014, it was sold to a parent company, Rocky Boots. Then I was totally out of the picture for about a year into their acquisition. While that's happened again, me as a creative dude, I had to keep going and going. So I started my design agency called Visual Rituals, and under that umbrella, I was working for you know, just miscellaneous accounts, just doing graphics, doing some freelance shoots, whatever it takes. But then also brand building. Since I wasn't working anymore, I created As If, acronym for As Seen in the Future. When I did that, is what I wanted to do was now challenge myself on just going there and take it to the next level and not even care what anybody thinks. Because already the acronym of the brand, As Seen in the Future, I think transcends what I had to implement into that program. The ideology again was to like act like you're not from here, like act like you're from the future. And what does the future entail? What does it have for you? For me, what I felt was it was more survivalism. It was more utilitarian. It was more like, you know, it's not bright and futuristic like what we think, and everything is all green and glamorous. I think, you know, I don't know if it's Holocaust, I don't know if it's like meltdown, I don't know what it could be, or zombies, whatever the hell. But at the end of the day, it is going to be about survivalism. It's going to be about utilitarian, about like what your necessities will be. And I think that's what the new brand kind of transcends. What we do is like take ourselves out of the element, but then put ourselves back in the element of today and say, what would today's society need that we know what's happening in the future that can help? So what I like about that concept and idea was it has the ability to like not be labeled. It has the ability to like really go there and be futuristic. It has the ability for people to even call it out like, oh man, I don't get it, it's too futuristic. But at the end of the day, you just said like, just do it. You know, you kind of just said, yeah, well, that's what it is. It's supposed to be futuristic. And it's supposed to be for the people to get it. You know, because then once we leave, the ones that attracted to it will know how to survive. The ones that didn't are lost. You know, they won't know because it won't exist anymore. So that's what, again, is, for me, is my challenge is always just, how can I always create? How can I always like take stuff to the next? But then, I don't know. I think it's just always like the ideology of like creative and business always has to be supported for sure. And I think in our society, I think, you know, the business side is a lot overweighted, and depending on the businesses, not even believable in what they're really doing. You know, I think the challenge is for a lot of people out there, a lot of companies out there, is how to make that money, how to be profitable. When me, it's more like how to be relevant. You know, how do you stay in existence, you know, throughout your time, but then still be cool, you know, still make cool things that people can't catch up to. So what happened after that is Rocky Brands did a kind of a cult marketing thing, and then what it ended up telling them was creative recreation is is this street artist. Creative recreation is in tune to the streets. Creative recreation is, you know, like anybody creative in the world, whether it be a dancer, whether it be this and whether it be that. And again, it was just the irony of that story was like, said street artist, that's me. I think they Googled it. You know, and then number two is like they get that, they get the idea and they get the concept, believe in it. You know, is it something that we want to portray out there? To me, I try to tell them yes. I mean, that's the things that we have to say. Those are the things that we have to prove. I mean, it's even in the name, creative recreation. What does that mean? You know, like creative, like anything that you think out of your mind, recreation through work and play. I mean, it says within the name, it already says what it is, without even like giving it a mission statement or giving it any of that. And then with the product, it just kind of speaks on its own. But what I liked is it spoke to individuals rather than spoke to masses. Like everyone here would probably choose something different compared to like another brand that's trying to tell you buy this, you know. And I see everyone here has different styles, and of course, hopefully we had a style that was for you in the brand. And that was and that's even a harder challenge because we're not trying to look at the market and see what's trending. We're just trying to like create cool stuff, and hopefully, you know, again, an individual will like it out there, and it will convert or be a chameleon to their lifestyle. So Rocky, after doing that kind of marketing thing, they asked me back in late 2015, late 14? 15, I don't know, about a year ago, they asked me back, and then it takes about a year process. They asked me back as creative director, so it took about a year process for me to put like DNA, the vision, and the direction back into the brand. And the irony of that was, it was crazy. They had other people that were trying to be creative directors. They had other people that were trying to understand the brand and try to convey that message to the brand. But, you know, they couldn't understand it. And then for them to ask me back, it was a no-brainer, and it was easy because I founded it. So I understood the DNA. I understood what needed to be out there. But the first and foremost thing I said to them, I go, in order for me to come back, I don't want to go through the same shit I went through before, so you have to give me 1,000% creative direction. They said, that's all you. You do it, you try to, you know, add your DNA and everything that you need to do to bring this company back, and then we'll support it. So that being said, I came back in and really took it to the next and brought, again, innovation back into, you know, that casual lifestyle. It was a little different just for the fact that in the past we had production kind of issues, like we had restraints of where we couldn't do too much technology or any of that stuff. And then with the acquisition, it was cool to come back and now have a new palette of being able to do whatever I could try to figure out and create. So creatively, it was exciting for me to now have a new outlet to really do a lot of cool things. But the challenge, again, was how to create these kind of things and have this, you know, the corporate entity support it. But the good thing, again, is with Rocky is what they did was they supported it as far as creating a niche that they didn't have in their program. They're mostly work boots. They're mostly like cowboy boots. They got government kind of contracts. And then implementing us, they ended up getting the lifestyle category. So it wasn't them trying to really like make us into them. It was them just basically saying, we're going to help you strengthen that lifestyle and then really get it out there and then let you do your thing. So that was just the exciting thing of me coming back and really infiltrating all the new and creating newness. The challenge was, again, there were already a lot of staple pieces that were selling, but then when I came on board, there was stuff that was selling when I left. So to me, it was kind of already getting outdated. And I kind of told them, I go, all right, we need to kind of create newness for this whole program and then re-spark and then re-energize the brand. But the dilemma was already like, how can we get rid of or steer away from a product that's already selling, you know, in mass quantities. And my challenge to them was, well, you know, how long are you guys going to be able to do that? How long are you guys going to be able to sustain that? You know, there has to be something new and innovative. So they go, all right, well, do your new innovation as aspirational pieces for the brand, but we're going to keep our core items because that's what's floating the boat. I'm like, all right, fine. So we do that, and then we go to these trade shows, and the cool thing is just all the aspirational items start checking. All the stuff that before that we thought of the brand was being more price point and being more price sensitive and being more in tune to the industry. It changed the game because now people started seeing the styles that we were producing, and then they're seeing now like the whole DNA that Creative Rec had. They were like, oh, okay, now they're stepping up. Now they're trying to take this brand to what I remember it was, like where it was innovative, you know, where it was different, where they were thinking out the box. So it was cool to see out in the industry because again, we haven't been in the market too long. Spring 16 is kind of the first year that you know, the stuff that I put creative direction into has went out in the market, and we've had a lot of support just for the fact that them reminiscing on the brand and seeing how we changed that industry was something that like they saw in the creative rec, and then they just wanted to. It was the good thing is they always wanted to see us win, you know. And then when I came back, it was great to see people like come to the trade shows or see the new stuff and go, oh man, okay, Rich is back. You know, I think you know, like he's bringing back the DNA. He's bringing back that creative back into creative recreation, and you know, ultimately again, it's like, what even though it's acquired, again, it's like I'm so adamant of always just, you always gotta be creative. You always gotta think out the box. You always got to. I mean, I even go through the challenges with them of like, well, you gotta make us stuff that sells. You gotta do this, and I'm like, you gotta get these things at certain prices. And when they challenge me on these things, I tell them, well, the disadvantage of what you guys are saying is like, those are already niches that people already have infiltrated. Like, you want us to do a $50 vulcanized shoe, that's Vans. You know, that's Converse. How can we do those better? You know, those have heritage. What we can do better is do leisure styles that are innovative and different. So the argument went back and forth, but then we still did all that aspirational stuff. And then we do trade shows, and then sure enough, as soon as we get our orders and bookings in, we ended up getting 2 hero pieces, winners that sold well to the accounts. But the irony was they were $120 shoes, while, you know, internally we were thinking that we were a $70 brand. But again, when I was trying to preach to them, I go, see, the thing is you guys are analyzing rather than believing on the vision. You know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's funny because it's like, well, like if you see it with other things, like say Mercedes-Benz, it's all the way from the designer to the owner to the production people to the sales people, live and breathe it. Like, you can walk into a Mercedes dealership, the guy's gonna know everything about it. He's gonna try to sell you in it, and by the time you leave, you're gonna be driving out a Mercedes. I think that's how all businesses have beginning to end, and they have to like live, breathe, and eat that vision. You know, but if there's a little bit of sway here and there on either the sales side or even on the marketing side or even the design perspective, then there's that lack of synergy, you know? So ultimately what needs to happen is also just, I guess in those bigger industries, it's like for us to try to find like a business or a company that like one that we like and enjoy and would love to work, and then to infiltrate that and then make sure that synergy kind of falls through. You know, one of the things that I always experience when I meet, like when I first came back, and then I started meeting some of the new employees, and prior to that, even with our older employees, they always tell me the same story. They always go, dude, man, like when I saw Creative Rec, I was like, man, that's like the illest. I would love to work there. Wow, this and that, you know. And they're like, it's so cool because you guys do cool, innovative, and different stuff. So it's like people get the DNA, people understand, and then people want to do it. So then when you find those kind of right people and then you add them into your account, then your synergy is there. Then what you believe in starts happening. But ultimately, what needs to happen is the support. So, I mean, as far as you know, doing that on your own, you get the support. You know, as far as doing it for a bigger company, depends. You know, it depends if they believe in you or not. You know, It depends even on the industry. Like you look at like the fashion industry and you look at LVMH, and you look at how they support their designers. You know, they let Marc Jacobs do whatever the hell he wants, you know, because at the end of the day, they know his passion will make money. And that's the right way of thinking, you know. To think any other way is like, oh, we got to make money doesn't even make sense. At the end. Like, there's no formula, there's no strategy, there's no nothing. It's just, it's math. You know, we all know that business. 1 + 1 = 2. We double it. Simple as that. But how do we do it? That's the bigger question. So, dang, I think I'm pretty much caught up to where I've been at on the brand, and I'm just really looking forward to just seeing now me coming back to see where the brand goes to and see how it gets accepted out in the market. And, you know, hopefully, again, we create that niche that, you know, we once did in the past and then re-energize it, you know, back into this next phase of the decade. And then see where it goes from there. I think that's it.
Wow.
Guys.
I got goosebumps from that whole thing, man. Thank you so much. Can we give it a round of applause for Rich? This is a topic that comes up every time I speak to somebody, whether they're a designer, whether they're any part of the fashion industry. I want you to listen to one thing that he said in particular. Believe in the passion. That's the right way of thinking. But think about that. Most of us are conditioned to focus on other things. You know, if we work for a company, they tell us how things operate. We focus usually on the money aspect. And there's usually two types of thinking as far as what people think, and that's the creative side and the business side of the fashion industry. And people think that those two are mutually exclusive. Now think about that for a second. Business and creativity are not mutually exclusive. They need to complement each other. And I love what he said about fundamentally believe about what you're passionate about, because the money will come eventually. Every time I talk to somebody, they're always like, well, I've got this idea, I've got this and that. I'm like, okay, well, what are you basing this off of? Well, I saw that somebody else did this, and I want to do that too. It's like, okay, well, that's fantastic, but what do you believe? Because at the end of the day, a brand is about it's a collection of people. It's a collection of people that either believe in it or they don't. And that's what really separates successful brands from the ones that don't have that longevity and the sustainability like we were just talking about. And the hardest part of that process is believing in yourself enough and believing in your brand enough. Because once you do that, everything else starts coming together. It's unbelievable. It's almost like magic. Myself and Chase Vance, my business partner who was unable to be here tonight, started ABR with basically no money and the idea that we just wanted to bring creative and talented individuals together. Share ideas and let's see what happens. And we started this in our living room, and then before you know it, people are coming left and right. We expected maybe about 5 to come to the first meeting because we were like, oh, we're just going to tell a couple of our friends. We're just going to start. 18 showed up there, and we progressively outgrew every venue since then. And some types were coming up and asking, okay guys, so how are you making money? Are you charging your members? First thing they ask every single time. No, we're not. Well, what's in it for you? Well, we get to meet the most talented, passionate individuals in the industry. That's what's in it for us. That's what's in it for all of us. But now you have a community of people that are passionate about what they do. I haven't met one person at these meetings that doesn't have that fire. There's something about them. You don't know what it is, but you're just like, wow, I want to talk to you. And every single time I walk away a better person, a more well-rounded person, and I've had value added to my life, and hopefully I've added value to somebody else's life. That's what we're about here at ABR. Last thing I wanted to say is thank you to Pierce. Can you stand up for a second? It's Pierce Lopatic. Give him a round of applause. He's a designer at Creative Recreation, and he was the one that made all this possible to connect us to Rich. He was actually there at the first ABR meeting way back in October, so thanks a lot for that. So we're here until 10 o'clock. You guys can go ahead and just mingle and talk, share ideas, do whatever you guys want to do. But I'd like to bring Jason Wright up here to talk a little bit about some other operations and activities that we're going to be having going on for ABR. and as well as a little bit about our social media and stuff like that. Thanks.
Real quick, because I have questions, I know everybody else has questions, so we'll get out of your guys' way real quick. So most of you guys, I'm not sure, you guys probably heard about ABR through a friend or somebody brought you along, or whatever the case may be. For those of you that are your first time here, if you go to Apparel, submit your email, you'll be on a mailing list, you'll be able to know all of the gatherings that are coming up, any events, speakers, things of that nature. Also, once we post everything video-wise, which Ken is doing a wonderful job of documenting everything, we're just aggregating everything, making sure that it's clear, so we'll have an archive of the speaker, so in case you came in late or you missed it, or if you want to share it with somebody that wasn't here, you'll be able to do that, so you'll be able to get those updates as well. There are paper forms that you can fill out as well as business cards. You can take those that have Chase and Jason's information on there, as well as the Apparel Business Review website on there as well, so you can take those with you. Hold on, make sure. Okay. We have confirmed our next speaker for March, which will be 15 March, the next gathering, and the topic is going to be reconnecting the disconnected era. So it's talking a little bit about like marketing, social media. There's a lot to this one. It should be very fun. It's very interesting, and I definitely recommend you coming in for that one, those of you that are in town to make it. And then lastly, so how many of you guys were here when I talked about doing the book swap? How many people are still interested in the book swap? Great. So probably this close to confirming the location for it, but the date is looking like the 16th, which will be after the next one. And so there is a web page that you can go to sign up, so that you'll be able to get those emails as well. If you're interested, just come and see me. I'll give it to you, but it is going to be titled Bibliotech, a book swap for creative professionals. So there's that. So other than that, please mingle, enjoy. Thank you to Jamal and the park for having us. Been very gracious. Very gracious. Give it up,